Yeah, and the importance of creating, inviting the surrounding community in as well as access point.
Okay. What do we got there? Okay.
Yeah, no, they are.
Okay, I'll ask everybody to mute your cell phones and other electronic devices. Just so everybody knows, 2 of our trustees haven't gotten shorter. They're just on the phone. And they did that pursuant to notice because they're absent for work obligations. They can do that for a limited number of occasions. So if you see us looking over there, that's why. Okay, is there any objection to the participation of Trustee Apatow and Trustee Dearborn by phone? No? Okay. Yeah, I'll ask Rob to do a roll call for attendance.
Okay. Trustee Dahlman?
Here.
Trustee Swerk? Here. Trustee Dearborn?
Here.
Trustee Apatow?
Here.
Trustee Kripe?
Here.
Trustee Mancini?
Here.
And President Rintz is absent. Thank you.
Okay. And again, hearing no objection to Trustee Apatow, Trustee Dearborn, they can now participate fully in the meeting by telephone. I'll ask Trustee Mancini to do the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, Rob, can you do a quorum check?
Sure. The next regular meeting is May 3rd. Everybody okay for that date?
Yep.
Okay. And we had looked to reschedule the special study session to May 5th, but there's yet another schedule conflict. So we've now reverted back to the regularly scheduled date of May 10th, which hopefully you still all have on your calendars. I know Trustee Dahlman can attend. Trustee Swerk? Sure. Good. Yep. Trustee Kripe, Trustee Mancini. Trustee Apatow and Dearborn, I assume you both can make May 10th?
I'm pretty sure that I can, Rob.
Yeah, May 10th is our regularly scheduled date for a study session, and that's the date that we're going to pursue for that study session for May.
Okay.
Okay? And then the last meeting of May is May 17th. Everything look okay? Okay, great.
Rob, I'll be out on the 17th.
That's correct. I have you being on vacation. Thank you, Bob.
Okay.
Okay. At this time, we'll take public comment. If anyone in the audience would like to speak on an item that is not on tonight's agenda, please step forward. No? Okay. And Kristen, do we have any comments to read?
No comments in advance.
Okay, great. Trustee reports, we'll just start at the end.
No report.
No report.
No report.
Bob?
Andy, Chris was going to give a little update on some of the volunteer work down at the Green Bay Trail. I take it Chris is not there right now. Is that right?
Correct. Chris is out tonight, so I'm filling in his absence.
Okay. Just a little update, and this was mentioned at a recent meeting, that there's a great group of volunteers, half a dozen or so gentlemen, who have offered their services to sort of clean up a little bit of the trail from a trash standpoint, but also from a removing some of the deadfall that's along the trail. They did a session last Friday, starting at Scott Street, going a little bit south of there. And you may, if you were on the trail in the last few days, Rob, I don't know if the Park District picked up the wood, but there were little piles of wood that they had pulled out and cut and did a nice job on. And they're going to go at it again tomorrow. Again, there's no cutting of live growth at all. This is just removing deadfall. That's if you walk on the trail, you'll see all this in there, and it's a big job. And Elisha Gray's part of this, and a group of again about 5 or 6 gentlemen doing it. So we'll keep you posted on that, and it's kind of the start of this initiative to improve the Winnetka portion of the trail.
That's great. Thank you. Trustee Apatow, any report?
No report tonight, thank you.
Okay, and I have no report. Village manager,
No report this evening.
village attorney? No report. Okay, takes us through that. 2022 Arbor Day Proclamation. All right. For 29 consecutive years, the village has been recognized as a Tree City USA by the Arbor Day Foundation, supporting the Community Tree Care Program. And I will now read that proclamation. Whereas in 1872, J. Sterling Morton proposed to the Nebraska Board of Agriculture that a special day be set aside for the planting of trees, and whereas this holiday, called Arbor Day, was first observed with the planting of more than 1 million trees in Nebraska, and whereas Arbor Day is now observed throughout the nation and the world, and whereas trees can reduce the erosion of our precious topsoil by wind and water, cut heating and cooling costs, moderate the temperature, clean the air, produce oxygen, and provide habitat for wildlife. And whereas trees are a renewable resource giving us paper, wood for our homes, fuel for our fires, and countless other wood products. And whereas trees, wherever they are planted, are a source of joy and spiritual renewal, now therefore the Council of the Village of Winnetka do hereby proclaim April 29, 2022 as Arbor Day in the Village of Winnetka, and we will urge all citizens to support efforts to protect our trees and woodland and to support our village's urban forestry program. Anyone have any questions about that?
Nope.
All right. All right, great. Any public comment on the Arbor Day proclamation? We all like trees. That's good. Okay. All right.
Quick question on that.
yeah.
Did I see that they're giving away seedlings on the 29th? Is that correct?
Andrew, do you want to? Andrew's our village
In
forester.
case anybody's watching, listening.
Yeah, we are giving away seedlings on the 29th, so at our public works yards on Willow Road. So we have some sugar maple, some spruce trees, and some little oaks, so, and some educational displays too. So, yep.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Andrew.
Great. I am not done. We have a monarch pledge. The Environmental and Forestry Commission is requesting that the Village Council approve the 2022 Monarch Remembrance Proclamation to show support and promote monarch butterfly conservation. So I will now read that proclamation. Whereas the monarch butterfly is an iconic North American species whose multi-generational migration and metamorphosis, this is like a tongue twister, from caterpillar to butterfly has captured the imagination of millions of Americans, and whereas the count in 2017 western monarchs, which overwinters in California, reached a historic low of fewer than 29,000 butterflies, down from 1.2 million 2 decades previously, and falling below the predicted extinction threshold. The population failed to rebound in 2019, maintaining just 29,000 individual butterflies. Whereas 20 years ago, more than 1 billion eastern monarch butterflies migrated to Mexico, but in the winter of 2014, only 60 million made that trip. And whereas every citizen of Winnetka can make a difference for the monarchs by planting pollinator-attracting native plants to provide habitat for the monarchs and other pollinators in locations where people live, work, learn, play, and worship. And whereas on behalf of the people of Winnetka who are already planning on creating healthy habitats for these magnificent butterflies, the Village Council is honored to lead the way by signing the National Wildlife Federation Mayor's Monarch Pledge, and we encourage other officials across the United States and neighboring counties to take a stand with us so that monarch butterflies will once again flourish across the continent. Now, therefore, the Council of the Village of Winnetka do hereby proclaim April 22, 2022 as Monarch Remembrance Day in the Village of Winnetka. So I'll pause for a second there. Any questions from the council? And I think we have members of the forestry. Anyone want to say anything about, those are pretty staggering numbers. You want to go to the podium? So.
Charles Dowding, Chairman of the Environmental and Forestry Commission. Commissioner Kunkel is here with me as well, and we're very pleased that the village is continuing this initiative to support the Mayor's Monarch Pledge. and to continue to maintain its pollinator garden at the Public Works Department. So we're very pleased to continue that tradition, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Anyone else? Okay. Any comments or discussion from the council? All right, moving on. We are on to the Environmental and Forestry Commission 2022 Green Awards, which I think is why we've got people here. Each year, the Environmental and Forestry Commission awards recipients based on their efforts towards sustainable actions or sustainability actions. Environmental and Forestry Commission Chair Chuck Dowding to review the awards.
So Deanna is here with me to help present these awards for the recipients this evening. The Green Award recipients are chosen, as you probably know, based upon the award categories that emanate from the Green Region Conference 2, and they are recycling and waste reduction, land, water and stormwater, climate and energy, mobility, sustainable communities, meaning buildings, in this case, economic development and leadership in municipal operations. So in case you were counting, there were supposed to be 10 there. This year, the award will be presented to two, and the first is to the Hadley Institute for the Blind and Visually Impaired. And I'd like to ask are you the executive director?
I'm Mary Nelson, and I'm the chief operating officer.
Oh, how wonderful. Well, so Hadley was selected for its efforts in land, leadership, and water and stormwater. In 2021, Hadley redesigned their gardens with native plant species to replicate different environments across Illinois. They also included in their outdoor space new sensory elements for the visually impaired to have an unguided wayfaring experience. They also added crushed granite to their walkways to alleviate the stormwater issues that plague Winnetka. But I think fitting with this evening's Mayor's Monarch Pledge, what drew my attention was your installation of a pollinator garden in concert with the Garden Club, which is to be expanded. Is that true?
Yes, we work with the Garden Guild of Winnetka, who was instrumental in installing our first sensory garden in 1953, I think it was. So they've helped us all along throughout the years.
Oh, wonderful.
And so we're involved with the Garden Guild.
Well, thank you very much. So we'd like to make this presentation and maybe get a photograph of you so we could put this in a village e-blast. So I need, can you take the photograph, Deanna? You have a camera? Oh, there we go. Here. Deanna, why don't you stand with me? So Deanna's our liaison with the Public Works Department. Well, you should hold this. Yeah, you should hold this.
Is it on?
Great.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I appreciate
Nice
it.
job.
Yeah,
Keep up the
it's
good work. And
wonderful.
we're looking forward to the expansion of your pollinator garden.
Well, come visit everyone, please. It's open to everybody.
Good. Thank you.
Chuck, if you could maybe try leaning into the mic a little bit more. I think for some reason we're not picking. That's
Okay, sorry about that.
great.
The second award is given to the Winnetka Public Works Department for their work in municipal operations and energy. Deanna tells me that they exchanged some 149 large CFL bulbs for LED bulbs and also several other smaller ones, which resulted in the savings of some 14,000 watts. And I know that's a big number, but I wanted to translate that into something else other than watts. And I went to Wikipedia and discovered that that's the same thing as removing the CO2 savings, removing at least two, maybe three Winnetka Village cars off the road for a year. I mean, so every day, if that's saved, that's a savings in equivalent CO2, which is important, as we know, in terms of reducing the CO2 level. So I guess, Mr. McLean, are you here to receive the award? That would be great. So you should get between the two of us. I think you two work together, don't you? We do. so much. Keep up the good work. Well, and thank you, trustees, for all your hard work. I know you spent some time on environmental matters last week. In fact, several hours on the two-cycle leaf blower engine issue. I hope you made some progress. Thank you very much for your hard work.
Great, thanks.
Thank you.
And thank you for all that you're doing, and to the whole EFC. Any comments or discussion from the council?
Nope.
I'll just say, as a neighbor of the Hadley School, it's beautiful. Our house looks right at, we're right across the street. And the pollinator garden, I think, is working. I have a small apple orchard on that other side of that fence. And we had a lot of apples last year. So thank you for that. All right, moving on. Let's go to the approval of the agenda. Does any trustee wish to remove an item from the consent agenda for a separate vote? Okay, may I have a motion to approve the final form of the consent agenda?
So moved.
Voice vote? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, and Rob, could you read the consent agenda?
Certainly.
Aye.
Eric.
Aye.
We got you.
Okay, approval of the village council minutes for April 5th, 2022 regular meeting. Approval of the warrant list dated March 22nd, 2022 through April 4th, 2022 in the amount of $421,508.18. Resolution number R36, 2022, purchase of pedestrian crossing signs for adoption. Resolution number R40, 2022, approving change order number 2 to the contract with Maple Cable Construction Incorporated for directional boring work. Resolution number R47, 2022, Winnetka Music Festival License Agreement. Resolution number R49, 2022, the 2022-2023 Dutch Elm Disease Prevention Program. Resolution number R50, the Winnetka Farmers Market License Agreement. And resolution number R51, 2022, approving a non-exclusive easement agreement for construction and maintenance of a public water main.
Thank you, Rob. May I have a motion to approve the consent agenda by omnibus vote?
So moved.
Second.
And roll call vote?
Yep. Trustee Swerk,
Yes.
Trustee Dahlman,
Yes.
Trustee Mancini,
Yes.
Trustee Dearborn,
Yes.
Trustee Apatoff, Trustee Apatoff. Okay. Trustee Kripe.
Yes.
And it carries.
Okay.
Rob, can you hear me?
Can hear you now. I was calling your name for
Okay,
roll
yeah.
call.
Bob, I was a definite yes.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Moving on, ordinances and resolutions. Ordinance number M07, 2022, amending a special use permit and variations for playground improvements at Hubbard Woods Elementary School, 1110 Chatfield Road. This is up for introduction and adoption. The applicant is proposing improvements to an already existing playground located at the Hubbard Woods Elementary School. The Zoning Board of Appeals, Design Review Board, and Plan Commission have all recommended approval of the request. Community Development Director David Schoen to review.
Actually, Brian
Schoen.
Dorcas.
Brian.
Yeah.
A little bit of a change in the batting order here. I'm filling in for David tonight.
All right.
Thank you for having me this evening, and nice to be back. It's been a long time. As Trustee Kripe explained already, the request before you on this agenda item is an amendment to the special use permit that is currently in place for Hubbard Woods Elementary School. District 36 has requested an amendment to the special use permit to complete certain playground improvements and upgrades at Hubbard Woods Elementary. Included also with their request for a special use permit are 2 requests for zoning variations. There is one variation request to exceed the allowable impermeable lot coverage, as well as a variation to reduce the minimum required side yard setback to less than the required 12 feet. The village has received written comments from an adjoining property owner on this item. The communications from the neighbor are included in your agenda packet. beginning on page 238. The images on the screen, I apologize for those members who are not here. The images in the screen are showing the location of Hubbard Woods Elementary in the context of the surrounding neighborhood. Hubbard Woods is zoned R4 single-family residential, which is similar to the adjacent single-family residences in the neighborhood. Hubbard Woods Elementary is also, it's noteworthy that it's bounded on 3 sides by public streets, with the remaining yard to the southwest being the minimum side yard, and that abuts 2 residential properties to the immediate west. The images on the screen here that were also included in your agenda materials are showing the existing playground equipment that is located at Hubbard Woods School. That is the subject of the special use permit. The image on the left is showing existing play equipment along the northerly property line. The image on the left is showing equipment that will remain in place in this area. That existing equipment will remain, and there will be a relaying of the surface beneath the equipment, replacing existing wood chips with a rubberized play surface. The image on the right, showing a slightly different angle, is attempting to capture the location of play equipment that's located along the westerly property line. The play equipment along the west property line is adjacent to a single-family home to the west. That play equipment would be replaced with new equipment that I'll show in an image here to follow. And that play equipment along the west, as I mentioned before, will also receive a poured-in-place safety surface to increase the availability of the play equipment for children with mobility issues. This image on the screen currently is showing in plan view the location of both play equipment areas. Again, the portion of the image on the left is showing play equipment that will remain in place, the existing play equipment that will remain in place. And then on the bottom of the image is showing the play equipment that would be replaced, and highlighted in green on the image is a planting plan that is taking advantage primarily of arborvitae that will be planted along the property line that is shared with the residents to the west. This image on the screen is showing a rendering of the proposed playground equipment. This is a view from the east looking toward the west. I mentioned, in addition to the special use permit, there are zoning variations that are incorporated into this request. The first of the variation requests is to exceed the maximum allowable impermeable surface limits of the R4 single-family zoning district. This is to accommodate the increased impermeable area that is going to be taking place as a result of that poured-in-place rubberized play surface, and that would be an increase of approximately 8,000 square feet for that play surface. In addition to the impermeable surface variation, the play equipment would be located within 9.5 feet of the westerly property line, compared to the minimum of 12 feet that's required under the zoning ordinance. The location of that 12-foot minimum side yard is represented by the red line in the image on the screen. As has become customary in cases where zoning relief includes requests for relief from impermeable surface limits, the plan has been reviewed by village engineering staff. Engineers have provided their comment to us explaining that the existing drainage system on the property can, in fact, accommodate the additional impermeable area that's being proposed by this plan. Lastly, I'll go back to the public comment that's in your packet. The public comment that's beginning on page 238 of your agenda material did suggest the inclusion of additional arborvitae located in the area that's shown on the screen there. If you can see it, I realize yellow doesn't contrast very well with white, but there's a yellow oval there that's intended to kind of indicate the location that the neighbor had suggested that consideration be given to additional arborvitae. While the ZBA and DRB were sympathetic to the request for the additional plant material, neither board conditioned their favorable recommendation on inclusion of that additional plant material. Rather, the zoning board and the design review board had both suggested to the applicant that it use its best efforts to address additional landscaping in this area if possible. The area in question, I'll point out, is adjacent to detached garages that are shown in the darker shade of gray to the south of the oval there. And it had been discussed in both the zoning board and the design review board that the garage structures themselves had already provided to some degree a bit of a screening function there. And I'll just, well, let me go back and summarize the recommendations of the advisory boards. On March 14th, the Zoning Board of Appeals voted unanimously to recommend approval of the variations and special use, subject to the condition that the applicant use its best efforts to add additional landscaping along the west property line. Following that, on the 17th of March, the Design Review Board also gave a favorable recommendation, similar condition as the Zoning Board of Appeals. And then finally, on March 23rd, the Plan Commission gave a unanimous recommendation of approval to approve the special use permit as requested. The agenda packet that's before you this evening also includes Ordinance M7/2022, which, because of the unanimous recommendations of the three advisory boards, has been put together for you to consider possibly waiving introduction and going straight to adoption of ordinance M7. Or you could, on the other hand, of course, simply introduce the ordinance this evening. Happy to answer any questions, and I know that the applicant's designer is here as well this evening.
Okay, we'll start with questions from trustees.
I'll just lean in. As a frequenter of that playground for many, many years, there used to be a very large play structure that was like 16 feet in height, and maybe Catherine can address this. I think it's in the general location of where the new equipment is going to go, and I was just kind of curious because that was much higher at one point, and I think because it was old and potentially dangerous, the school removed it. So that was one question. And then the other question is, and again, this might be for Catherine, you know, arborvitae, are they planning to do the work this spring or summer? And then how, you know, how do we make sure the arborvitae take, right? If there's, you know, sprinkling, or how will it be watered and all those things? Because I know as the summers have gotten really hot, some of planted arborvitaes have been dying. So
I'm fairly certain that Catherine will give a much better answer than I could on that.
Yeah.
Why don't we just,
bring her.
yeah, if you don't mind.
Thank you, everybody. Catherine Talty, and I'm the landscape architect for the project. So the first question regarding the play structure, the equipment at its tallest, Brian, can you put it on that slide with the,
that one?
Yeah, that may
Does
be.
that work?
That's probably best. So there was a reduction in height quite a bit from the existing old play equipment that we're removing to the new configuration. The tallest peak of the roof of the new equipment that we're installing is that hexagonal roof that you can see, and that's at 12 feet at the peak. It is, we intentionally lined this up with the garages because of the proximity to the houses to the southwest and wanting to preserve the privacy best we can. So I think the condition is much improved from what it is currently in regards to that. We did utilize the garages intentionally to screen that view. Regarding the plant material, the anticipated construction date is in the summer when school is out. So planting probably will be in August, greatest time to plant. But the school district is responsible for maintaining and keeping them alive. We will put provisions that they have a year warranty on the plant material.
John?
Yeah, my two questions were really stormwater, and you addressed that. And then as far as the arborvitaes and the garages, I totally agree that the garages is a great screen to begin with, so I have no issue with that. And jumping the gun, I'm okay with intro and adoption. So.
Kim?
I was at the Plan Commission when we had a very thoughtful discussion and lots of questions came up, and it was a unanimous vote to approve it. So I don't have any questions.
Bob Dearborn?
Yeah, can we spend a second just addressing the neighbors, Mr. Humphrey, I think it was. I'm a little unclear whether his concerns were generally satisfied. It sounded like one of the commissions, I kind of backed off, one of the commissions approved it, but wanted the school to consider additional landscaping. I mean, where does that stand with his particular concern? Is there anything that's being done to address it, or are we just moving forward?
That might be a question for Brian.
I'll jump in because a
Oh, yeah.
user of the playground, my kids are at school there. The current
Your mic.
the current structure that's there is directly in front of his house, is very large, as Tina pointed out, and that's being removed, and this new structure is actually going further away than the current structure is at his house location. So as a user of it, I would say it's in his best interest for this plan to go through, but
And I can also address, because now we're working on the construction documentation. Our only hesitancy with adding plant material in that specific location behind his garages were to allow us room for our, we have some area drains that are running through, and so before we committed, we didn't, we wanted to see how that was going to work out when we went to construction documentation. I can tell you that we have added lower level landscaping to kind of clean up that area. He's really just going to see it from the oblique. And I did personally speak with him on site, and you know, I believe everybody's comfortable with the addition to this.
Great, thank you.
Okay. Good. Thank you.
Rob Apatow?
Yeah, just one quick thing. I'm generally in favor of these upgrades, of course. I guess I just look at the surface and I look at what we're going to be spending to fix stormwater issues, and I know there are other alternatives that are more permeable and would work. I just don't know if this is like the default, going to this rubberized surface is the default solution. But, you know, I just have to rely on the village to say we've looked at this and it really won't be a problem. It's, you know, I think it's, you know, I'm sure it's a good surface. I think I'm sure it's more expensive, but I just really look at this from we're spending all this money on fixing stormwater, and we're putting a massive surface that seems to be the default surface to go to, which is exact opposite of what we're trying to do.
Could one or both of you speak to just the rationale behind the surface that's being used? Is it an ADA safety issue?
Sure, I can answer about this surface on these two playgrounds specifically. I'm not sure in terms of strategically if this is the kind of go-to surface, but for the accessibility needs of the school, there really is nothing that compares. Everything else that works in this climate is loose. And that causes a problem for wheelchair-bound kids, or even kids on crutches temporarily, or walkers. There are a few kids that have other skin issues, and they were having issues with the loose fiber safety surface. So that was the rationale behind these two playgrounds, and previous playgrounds at the school is done. It just allows better mobility for the kids. So,
Thank you.
Yeah, I'd heard that as well, and I understand there's some very specific, unique situations which I think aren't very present, but yeah, I'd heard that as a reason why. I just didn't know if this is going to be the surface that we're going to continue to put impermeable surface after impermeable surface on all of our playgrounds, but if there wasn't another option, I would have been more, I would get it. But I think there are, and but I have to trust that the village has done their, the managers have really looked at this and don't think there'll be issues created by it.
Okay. So at this time, I'll ask for any public comment from the audience. Please step on up to the mic. Introduce yourself. Thank you.
My name is Tom Brown. I'm actually a former resident of one of the properties that bought this situation. My one question for you guys is, have you looked at the wood chip situation, which sounds silly, but the comedy on Hamptondale, which is the street I'm on, not Chatfield, is you have a rainstorm come in, and all the wood chips go to that great big drain and clog it almost immediately. And then we have this waterfall down Hamptondale. And then the next day we've got this lovely scree halfway down our street. Now, what you're doing here is creating more impervious surface, which suggests to me you're going to put greater pressure on the water flowing across that surface, pushing more wood chips into that storm drain, blocking the storm drain again, and we'll have the routine. And it really is a comedy on our street to see the mess that it makes every rainfall. What study or look at has been done about the wood chips? What does this new impervious surface do toward more waterfalls on Hamptondale?
Please speak to that a bit. Certainly, the addition of the 8,000 square feet of rubberized play surface has an effect on the amount of stormwater runoff generated by the site. What I can tell you is, going forward, if the plan is ultimately approved at this stage, it's certainly not at the point of being able to be approved for a permit. Catherine and her team with District 36 will ultimately be having to generate construction documents that will be reviewed not only in the Community Development Department for compliance with zoning and building codes, but I think more importantly, the plans will be reviewed for compliance with the village's engineering principles, including looking at the proposed grading and drainage profiles of this plan, essentially to make sure that the plan as installed is designed in a way that doesn't generate additional runoff, either towards the street or towards, I think more importantly, to adjoining residential properties. And the way that's done is through review of the engineering plans and civil engineering construction documents. So that is how that issue is generally addressed through the permitting process.
A question, is it your impression that the wood chips are coming from the playground as it exists today?
Oh, yes.
Okay, so Catherine, can you explain if it's replacing the wood chips? So it might be a reduction of X% of wood chips that could possibly be going down?
correct. So the wood chips that exist currently are being removed and replaced with this surface. So there won't be any loose material left.
But there's still abundant wood chips around the surface. Are you eliminating all wood chips?
Yes, yes, that's the plan.
The entire surface will be impervious?
Correct.
So we'll have just, okay.
Yes, all the wood chips, and that may be phased construction-wise, depending on the budgets when the bid comes in. So they may do this in a phased approach where what they call the kindergarten play equipment gets tackled second, but the goal is that will all be eliminated.
Okay, and I'm sorry, I heard your recitation of things that should be done. Have they been done, this examination by these authorities you've identified as to the actual runoff? Because if all this goes impervious, then all the water that hits that surface is going to go right over the corner. Has the study been done, or is that to be done? I
So
wasn't sure I was following
I
you.
think it's a question really for Catherine, because what I heard is that the construction engineering documents haven't been done until they get approval. And Catherine, do you anticipate trying to detain some of the water on site, or is there?
Actually, all of the stormwater will be managed on site. The construction documents will be reviewed by the engineering department once they're completed, but everything is graded to run off into the field or into the existing catch basins that are adjacent to the play area. There are 2 catch basins just to the northeast of the play equipment, and that's where the majority of the stormwater will run. Everything else will run toward the field.
Okay. I guess if I could, just as not to be a skeptic, but as somebody who's lived through this for decades now, I would ask you to condition any consent you give to this project on some higher level of assurance that, in fact, the runoff will not continue to be what it has been. It may be, I see this as an opportunity to mitigate, not just maintain, because maintenance really, it's a mess. But I have confidence that you've looked at it. We have seen, I don't know if you've kept records of how many playgrounds we've seen go into Harbour Woods over the last 20 years, but there have been many new structures, from the old Carlton Washburn Jungle Gym on through a whole series. And they've all given us a good faith undertaking that there wouldn't be runoff, and there's always been runoff. So if you'll excuse my skepticism, I would urge you to look at it carefully. We're
Thank you.
spending a lot of time with stuff that goes down our street.
So engineering permit issuance will not occur until the final documents are in order and meet the village standards.
Which we're not granting that tonight.
Right, so that's a separate permitting process, but our civil engineers will be looking at it very carefully to make sure it goes to the catch basins and to the field, because, based upon their preliminary review, it's not going to cause a runoff, and our system should be able to handle it based upon the standards that we have in place. So that's our typical process.
And with all due respect, we've heard that time and time again. So whatever you do.
Yeah, our standards have actually become more stringent over time as we've done more and more on the stormwater issue, across the community. But you can't control for the 100-year rain every single time, but the normal rains, it should be able to control it.
We seem to have a lot of
And I understand, and we're designing for that now.
Any other audience comments or public comment from the audience? Okay.
If I can add one more thing with
Yeah.
the storm.
Yeah.
The only thing that are good from their final engineering documents, they're going to be looking at the new impervious.
Right.
So any of the other impervious areas,
Yeah.
they're not going to be required probably to fix that,
Right.
but you just got to make sure it doesn't make it any worse.
It's the netting.
Right. So you still may have some other overflow that just because of other areas of the site. Just wanted to,
Just like other areas of the village where we have, it's designed to have surface overflow and, as a release valve, right? That happens in a lot of areas of the village.
yeah, this doesn't trigger 100% conformance to the ordinance, other than what the new work they're touching has to conform, correct?
But I guess they have a ton of impervious surface, so it's going to be, this is adding a lot more, so that's going to trigger a pretty robust review, I would think, right?
Right.
And then if the school district passes a referendum and, to build the addition to the school, that's going to probably trigger a massive relook at the stormwater for the school.
Yes, depending upon the footprint of the build-out or the renovations, they will be required to detain to our current standards.
Yeah.
Any other comments or discussion? Kim, no? Rob, Apatow?
Nope, I'm good.
Bob, Dearborn?
Yeah, I just asked a question. I'm a little, you're being remote here is not the greatest, but I'm a little uncertain, and I have a lot of sympathy for what the resident was saying a few minutes ago. This is a change, and I guess my question, we're saying that we're going to review the stormwater impact, the water impact, sort of after the fact, but I guess I would ask Catherine, is there a preliminary review of the stormwater impact? And is that something that, I was looking through the materials, I didn't see a lot on that. Trustee Apatow raised the issue of the impermeable surface that's being added. We don't want anything to happen here where that first 30-year rainstorm occurs and it's like, whoa, what has happened here? And I guess my question is, has there been some review of the stormwater impact that, that we could see in the next couple weeks or so? Given all this conversation, I personally am not in favor of waiving I'd kind of like to see something that gives comfort to the people in that neighborhood that this is not going to create a water issue.
And Brian, maybe that's a question for you. Can you just refresh? There was a preliminary review, but what we're talking about now is after design, final drawings are submitted, then there'll be a further review.
The preliminary review by engineering was looking at the plan from I guess the 10,000-foot level in terms of the site's ability to absorb the additional runoff that will be generated by the proposed additional impermeable surfaces. In other words, as Catherine kind of spoke to, there are drainage structures that are located on the property, and it was their opinion based on the plan and the location proximity of those drainage structures that during I guess a typical or even atypical storm event that the site would be more than able to handle the additional runoff generated by the 8,000 square feet of rubberized surface. Now, where the rubber meets the road, of course, is when the plans are drawn in a bit more detail and show the actual height of this play surface, the height of the ground surrounding it, and the way the property is profiled and sloped and sculpted to assure that the water ends up going towards those drainage structures on the property and not towards the neighbors or towards the street.
Okay. All right. Bob, any other questions?
Go ahead, Bob.
I was just going to say, is that stormwater review? Is that part of the public record? Is that available, Brian, or is that just an on-site review of the situation?
Permit review is all public if the documents are requested.
I think he's talking about the preliminary.
Oh, the preliminary review? Okay.
Is the question about the review by our engineering staff? I have to be clear. I don't. I'm not familiar with the conversation that occurred between community development and engineering. I'm only aware of the fact that, as the agenda report indicates, that the engineering staff looked at it and found the plan acceptable.
And that's public record, of course.
Yeah.
So, okay.
That is.
Andrew, I have one quick question, probably for Catherine, because I think something that somebody raised just triggered a thought. When the play equipment was replaced previously, they didn't regrade the site, and I think the topo is kind of slopes down near that massive drain in the corner by the, kindergarten area, I guess, for lack of a better term. Are you going to be regrading the site and kind of adjusting the topo so it doesn't kind of it's not soup sloshing out of the soup hole, it's going to go back into the interior of the site? Is there some kind of grading work that's going to be done that you anticipate?
Correct. So I think what tends to happen in practice with wood chips, because again, it's a loose material and will wear in places, compact in places, and the grading is fundamentally done on the underlayment, but the wood chips themselves tend to build up in places, tend to wear down in places. It's not a perfect situation. This play surface behaves more like asphalt. So it's poured, it's cured, and once you set a grade, the grade is set. It doesn't wear, it doesn't compact. So from that standpoint, you have a more reliable grading compared to wood chips. So, kind of conceptually speaking on the grading, we have certain spots that, to get into the, trying not to get into too much nitty gritty on this, there happens to be a retaining wall that runs along the back side of the entire playground that exists. So along basically the property line, the, kind of southwestern and western property line. So that retaining wall is a concrete retaining wall, and that's going to stay. And that sets our high grade, our high point on the playground. And then everything gets sloped back into the big asphalt play yard and the field. So that's the grading in concept. So the conversation with engineering was kind of conceptual grading. The fact is the 8,000 feet doesn't trigger a large full scale. I think John was kind of alluding to this. It doesn't trigger a full scale stormwater management plan on the site because it's not enough to trigger that. So we're taking a piece of the entire lot and saying, okay, this needs to not make any situation worse. The stormwater needs to be contained on site, and so those are the parameters we're sticking with. We're containing the stormwater on site.
Okay, thank you. All right, any other comments or questions? If not, we can.
Andy, I'm sorry, I had one quick thing too.
You guys are both talking at the same time. How about the one on the right start first?
Once you call on them. And
Rob Apatow.
There you go. I knew I was on the right. We have some history with this. I mean, I think the Park District ended up putting them in at Dwyer Park and in the Hubbard Woods District. I don't think there was a lot of study done beforehand. They just kind of put in. But how much bigger? First of all, I think that these are going to be a lot bigger than those surfaces. And we have some history of, I'm not sure how those parks have been draining and how have there been problems created by it. We have some history on this.
Is that a question? Yeah, is that a question? We do have history on it.
My question is there anybody, does only the Park District know how that's been draining, or does the village know how that's been draining? Or have there been any issues with drainage in those areas where it's already been installed in the village or in other places?
Yeah, Trustee Apatow, this is Rob Bahan.
Rob.
Each park went through the same process that you're seeing here with the school. So there were zoning approvals and there were engineering reviews to ensure that there wouldn't be an adverse stormwater impact. To my knowledge, I have not heard of any trouble at Dwyer Park or Hubbard Woods Park, but they all went through the same process. There was the zoning entitlement, and then there were the technical permitting aspects that included stormwater.
And we're just approving the zoning.
Thanks, Rob.
We're just approving the zoning, and I can testify. I voted on the zoning on that, and it did go through the process that has been discussed, which is a process that has been beefed up probably in an earlier session I also sat on.
Yeah, right.
And again, with any other zoning issue that comes before us, we never ask for final engineering.
Right.
It's always contingent on building permits being final and final engineering. So if it doesn't meet the final engineering, they're not going to get the permit.
Correct.
Even though they get the zoning.
Right.
So again, I go back to intro and adoption in my mind is this a good thing to do?
Yeah, and Bob and Rob, I'll just ask you to think about what John just said. If we're not going to accomplish anything by doing a two-step vote, if the real concern is this final engineering issue, maybe the sooner we get the drawings in the works, the better. But I'm not trying to pressure you, but I am. So, but Bob, I think you had something to say.
I was just going to ask Andy, and maybe for Peter Friedman, I was just looking through the ordinance. And again, I really respect what the neighbor was saying, that, these things, these adverse consequences can kind of happen, and he's just looking for some assurance that the village is going to do their due diligence on stormwater review and so on and so forth. And Peter, I guess my question is on the ordinance, is there any language? I mean, I see, that the work has to be done in accordance with all applicable village codes, ordinances, and standards, so on and so forth. Is there any language that could be added to provide some comfort to the neighbors in the area that, that this is going to be looked at as this process moves along?
It has to be looked at. No, it's just, it has to.
Where's the language? Do you know what page it's on? The ordinance?
Well, it's on page 246 of the packet. That's what I'm looking at.
Yeah, I mean, Bob, or Trustee Dearborn, the language you read is the language that we use to ensure that that notwithstanding the zoning approval, they still have to comply with all other village codes and regulations, and the stormwater review and the engineering review is mandated.
Yeah, if you look at packet page 242, it says that development, use, maintenance of the proposed improvements as a subject property must be in general accordance with the following documents, except for minor changes in site work approved by the Director of Community Development or the Director of Public Works within the respective permitting authority in accordance with all applicable village codes, ordinances, and standards. So they got to get the permit properly approved, and it's in the ordinance.
Okay, so the neighbor or the resident in the area should take some comfort that this ordinance presupposes that work's going to be done.
Correct. Yep.
Okay.
But knowing that
Okay.
it may not fix all drainage problems that he thinks he may have.
Sure.
That this work cannot make.
Well, I
it
would say,
worse.
John, it's not a matter of fixing the drainage part. It's a matter of not creating big problem,
Right.
unanticipated consequences.
You're exactly correct.
Okay. So I'm just going to throw it out there. Can I have a motion to waive introduction of ordinance number M7, 2022?
So moved.
Second? Anyone?
You should not second it.
No, I'm asking for a second.
Okay, all right, sorry about that. It's on first, right?
I'll second.
Okay. Voice vote, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I don't want to hear that part.
No,
I'm
it's
just
got to be
kidding.
unanimous.
I'm just kidding. Any opposed? Okay. I think we're good.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, great.
Is there an opportunity for a quick question?
Yeah.
Following up on that.
We're kind of into our process now, so,
You got, okay.
yeah,
You got
got to keep rolling or else I go to reset. All right, can I have a motion to adopt ordinance number M7, 2022?
So moved.
And,
Second.
okay, and roll call vote. Rob?
Trustee Swart,
Yes.
Trustee Mancini,
Yes.
Trustee Dahlman,
Yes.
Trustee Dearborn,
Yes?
Trustee Apatoff,
Yes.
Trustee Kripe.
Yes.
Yeah, I think it should be M8, 2022.
Well, we've got two.
Oh, you got two.
Yeah, we got two.
Seven and then
Yep.
eight.
You'll get another chance here. Okay. Okay, we're good on M7, 2022. Now we've got ordinance number M8, 2022, amending a special use permit and variations for playground improvements at Greeley Elementary, 275 Fairview Avenue. This is up for introduction and adoption. Again, the applicant, the school district, is proposing improvements to an already existing playground located at Greeley Elementary School. The ZBA, Design Review Board, and the Plan Commission have all recommended approval of the request. And Brian, I think, is going to present this one as well. So, Brian?
Similar to the item that you just considered, this special use permit request by District 36 is similar in scope in that it is to a special use permit modification to allow improvement of and upgrade of play facilities at Greeley Elementary. Similar also in the sense that it also requires, in addition to a special use permit, variations from, in this case, impermeable lot coverage again, as well as a setback. In this case is from the minimum required front yard setback, as measured from Hawthorne Lane. Excuse me. The images on the screen are showing the location and zoning of the property, similar, surrounded by single-family residential properties on all four sides. Greeley School is also zoned single-family residential. The playground that's being renovated in this particular location is highlighted, the brownish color call out on the northeast corner of the site. The existing playground you can kind of make out in that aerial photo image, the lighter brown kind of rectangular area, which I trust is probably the wood chip surface that's there currently. The photos on the screen here are showing the existing play equipment that's located at Greeley at the northeast corner of the site. Two different vantage points viewing it from the northeast, looking south, and then also looking west. The play equipment is being replaced within the same general area as the existing play equipment. Similar to Hubbard Woods, the existing wood chips are being replaced with the same rubberized safety surface in order to improve accessibility for students with mobility challenges. Rendering of the play equipment is shown on the screen here at the northeast corner of the site. The variations that are required in this particular case, the additional impermeable surface area, proposed amount of increase in impermeable surface is 3,976 square feet, which exceeds the maximum allowable for the district. And in this case, the play area is located within the required 30-foot front yard setback as measured from the north property line. And the one unique additional aspect of this project that is triggered the notice also included a variation that is being requested from the maximum allowable front yard lot coverage. That front yard lot coverage limitation is a more recent element of the zoning ordinance that was adopted within the last 10 to 15 years that put additional limits on how much of on a percentage level, how much of a front yard can be improved with impermeable surfaces. I'll point out that that restriction that was added to the zoning ordinance at that time was put into place primarily to address what had been kind of a concern, the phenomena of residential properties that were being having driveway surfaces that were being provided in the front yard area with turnarounds and things of that nature that were encumbering an unreasonably large amount of the front yard setback. So in this case, it certainly it became a factor in this project, but certainly was that regulation was adopted to address different factors. This particular application has been reviewed by the same three advisory boards. the Zoning Board of Appeals, Design Review Board, and Plan Commission all voted unanimously to recommend approval of the plan, and including the special use permit and variations without any conditions of approval. The council can choose to waive introduction and consider adoption of ordinance M8 2022, or simply introduction of the ordinance this evening. And I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you. Well, why don't we just do it the same way as last time? Tina?
I have no questions.
Don?
I had the same questions as the other one. You didn't say anything about stormwater. Was that looked at already?
Sorry,
Preliminarily looked at?
they've also looked at this one. I'm sorry I left that out.
That's okay. Thanks.
Kim? Rob Apatow?
All good.
Bob Dearborn?
Yep, no questions here.
Okay, no questions for me. Audience questions? No one? All right, great. Any further discussion or comments at the council? Otherwise, I'm going to ask for a motion to waive introduction.
So moved.
Second.
Voice vote, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay. Great. May I have a motion to adopt ordinance number M8, 2022?
So moved.
Second.
And roll call vote, Rob?
Trustee Mancini,
Yes.
Trustee Swerk,
Yes.
Trustee Dahlman,
Yes.
Trustee Apatoff,
Yes.
Trustee Dearborn,
Yes?
Trustee Kripe.
Yes. Okay. Next resolution, resolution number R 52-2022, approving amendments and vacation of easements in the Harza subdivision. This is up for adoption. The Village Council is considering a request approving amendments and vacation of easements for ingress, egress, a private roadway, and a tennis court in the Harza subdivision submitted by the owners of the subject property. Brian, do you have this one too? You have a full night. All right. Take it away,
Tommy for
Brian.
David.
Yeah.
David needed a break.
I don't get paid by the word either, so. You've already done a good introductory summary of what's before you. What the petitioners in this case are asking, there are 4 property owners that are located at 653, 655, 657, and 661 Sheridan Road. These 4 property owners have together collectively petitioned for an amendment to ingress and egress easements that are on and serve each of their 4 properties dating back to the 1991-1992 Harza subdivision, which I'll explain in a little bit more detail. The 4 properties at 653 to 661 Sheridan Road are shown highlighted in red there on the screen. In November 5th of 1991, the Village Council approved the 4-lot Harza subdivision, which is bounded by Sheridan Road on the west and Lake Michigan shoreline on the east. The 1991 subdivision plat is shown on the image on the screen and resulted in 4 buildable lots. 2 easterly lots along Lake Michigan were provided access by way of a recorded easement that measures 10 feet in width from Sheridan Road, as highlighted in yellow on the plat on your screen. And then at the easternmost edge, this easement widens to what we've called a hammerhead layout. That hammerhead design being kind of a traditional means of providing room for vehicles to maneuver, turn around, garbage trucks, et cetera, typically being kind of the concern about vehicle movements. In 2011, following the Harza subdivision by several decades, there was a driveway access easement modification to the driveway easements. If you look at the image on the screen, the area shown in blue was an easement that was granted over a portion of the property at 653 Sheridan for the benefit of the residents along the lakefront at 655 Sheridan. Subsequent to that, a new residence was built on that parcel at 655. In 2019, more recently, a mirror image of that modification occurred. There was a private easement agreement between the parties that modified access to the northerly lakefront lot to allow the driveway to kind of come off at a fork toward the north to provide independent direct access to the northerly lakefront property at 657 Sheridan. And then subsequent to that, a new residence has been constructed on that northerly lakefront parcel. Consequently, as a result of these two modifications to the easements, the private agreements between all of these parties to modify the driveway easements independently of their own action, the four property owners now have collectively requested that the village vacate that hammerhead easement shown in kind of the cross-hatched pattern on the image, as well as vacating the adjacent remnant of that 10-foot wide easement. In a sense, or in essence, what the request here is because the 1991, 1992 easements have been supplanted in large part by the 2011 and 2019 amendments. The applicants have essentially petitioned that release of the easements as shown would have no impact to the village. And in fact, the village Public Works Department, village engineering staff, water and electric, and fire department have all reviewed the request for release of the easements and have concurred that this request would not impact their operations in any way. I believe the applicant here this evening? You're the attorney. Okay. The attorney's here if you have questions of either of us.
All right. Any questions from the council?
I have a question for Peter. We're not the beneficiary of the original easement on the plat. Could they have not agreed to eliminate the platted easement without village approval?
Perhaps technically, but I think they thought since we approved the plat and signed the plat, they wanted to come back for our approval.
And just kind of clean things up,
Correct.
Get rid of these easements, okay?
Yep.
Because I was just looking through the documents as I was thinking about it. I didn't see that the village was a beneficiary.
Now, it is always, we get this question a lot when we approve a plat. Do we have to approve any
Right.
changes to the plat, even if we're
Yeah.
not really a party to what's on that part of the plat? But a lot of times, we're requested to do it just because we signed
Okay.
the plat.
Okay, I just wanted that clarification. Because they were able to modify it without our consent,
Yep.
right? Okay. And then where are the utilities? Are they in the, what will be vacated? Or they go along the property lines? I saw the statement that it won't affect the utilities.
See if I can, I'm not sure if any of these images are going to show it particularly clearly. If you look at the yellow highlighted
Yep.
easement for ingress and egress, it's not highlighted on the image, but immediately beneath that yellow highlighted image is an additional easement, kind of shown and lettered in blue, that is showing the location of the easement for utilities
Okay.
serving the lot. So those will remain in
Okay.
effect.
Page 365 of the packet might have a little sketch or idea that kind of shows it, I think.
Okay.
And there are other easements for utilities elsewhere on the property that will remain in effect.
Got it. Thank you.
And then the original easement was only, that yellow that's shown on the screen now, it's only 10 feet wide,
Correct.
and the new one is 10 feet?
I believe so.
Yeah, because they say that the fire department said it was okay. It surprises me for 10 foot wide. Wonder how big is the driveway only 10 feet, or?
Yeah, I would, not sure this plan that was approved in 1991 would receive the same response today. It's less than optimal. 10.
Right, but now don't we have the possibility to widen the easement to make it fire truck easy accessible or emergency vehicles? Just throwing it out there. I'm not trying to be difficult, but.
No, because they're not coming to amend the platted easement, they're coming to vacate it. Because they've already
Right.
adopted private easements between the four of them.
I understand.
I
but It's
know.
also
I know.
open a can of worms.
Yeah.
I know. Peter, any thoughts on that?
Is the question about emergency vehicles?
Well, yeah, like right now, the
Clearance.
yellow that's on the screen,
Right.
it's 10 feet wide. And I'm not sure how big the driveway is, but
My only,
do we be concerned about that or just leave it?
well, I would just defer. The fire department has reviewed this and they accepted it, so I got to defer to
They
them.
have. Even though we call this under the zoning regulations because of the number of lots that it serves, we do call this, and it is defined as a private street under the zoning ordinance. One thing that I've learned over the years is not all private streets are created equal. There are other private streets in town that serve a much larger number of homes, and 10 feet would be wholly inadequate for a private street that served 8, 10, 12 lots. But for a subdivision of this size, it is, to be frank, kind of a glorified shared driveway.
I see
So
that.
I think the 10 feet is probably less of a concern in this particular setting.
And not that we have any authority in this. Is there any fire hydrant down that way, or is it all at Sheridan Road?
I couldn't speak, I couldn't
Probably
answer
only a
that
Sheridan,
question
I guess.
accurately. Yeah.
Okay, again, it's beyond what we're looking at, sorry.
Yeah,
And then-
Trustee Swerk, I would say that if the fire department had concerns, they're not bashful about saying so.
Okay.
They would let us know.
Good. And then, just to clarify, they're vacating that one piece that says vacated for tennis court purposes. Is that for new tennis courts now, or is that just an old thing?
That tennis court easement is kind of a remnant of the 1991 conditions. So it's kind of more of a cleanup.
For tennis.
Right, but actually, it's actually a parking area now.
Yes.
Okay, all right. That's all I had.
Tim? Rob Apatow?
Nope, I think I'm good with it. As long as there's no issues with Peter, I'm fine.
Bob Dearborn?
Yep, I'll find you, Randy.
Okay. All right, then. May I have a motion to adopt resolution number R-52-2022?
So moved.
Second?
Roll call vote.
Trustee Swerk,
Yes.
Trustee Dahlman,
Yes.
Trustee Mancini,
Yes.
Trustee Apatoff,
Yes.
Trustee Dearborn,
Yes.
Trustee Kripe.
Yes. Okay, moving along. Old business, there is none. New business, there is none. Appointments, there are none. Closed session, there is none. Adjournment, may I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
So moved.
How about a second? There you go. Okay, roll call vote.
Trustee Dahlman,
Yes.
Trustee Mancini,
Yes.
Trustee Swerk,
Yes.
Trustee Dearborn,
Yes.
Trustee Apatoff,
Yes.
Trustee Kripe.
Yes. All right, that's a wrap.